The summer of 52 BCE was one of unrelenting struggle for Julius Caesar and his legions. Caesar's campaign to bring Gaul under Roman rule had encountered resistance at every turn, and the stakes were higher than ever. After the costly siege of Gergovia, Caesar's forces had suffered one of their few defeats, and Vercingetorix, the leader of the Gallic rebellion, was emboldened. The tide seemed to be turning in favour of the Gauls. But Caesar, ever the master strategist, was not ready to concede. He knew that the Gauls' newfound unity was fragile, held together by Vercingetorix's magnetic leadership. To truly break their resistance, Caesar needed to strike again, this time decisively. As the dust of the Gergovia defeat settled, Caesar began regrouping his forces. His legions, battle-hardened but weary, knew that they were far from finished with the Gauls. Meanwhile, Vercingetorix, basking in his victory at Gergovia, prepared his next move. The Gallic chieftain had adopted a new strategy, one that aimed to avoid direct confrontation with the Roman war machine. Instead of meeting Caesar's legions head-on, Vercingetorix ordered his forces to harass the Romans through guerrilla tactics, attacking supply lines and disrupting the flow of Roman reinforcements. He knew that if he could starve the Romans of their vital supplies, he could force Caesar into a corner. But Caesar was no ordinary commander. Where other generals might have hesitated or retreated in the face of such challenges, Caesar saw an opportunity. He recognized that Vercingetorix's strategy, while effective, was also risky. The Gauls were not accustomed to long, drawn-out conflicts. They relied on their home territories for sustenance, and their coalition was fragile. If Caesar could draw Vercingetorix into a battle on his own terms, he could deliver a crushing blow to the Gallic rebellion. The chance came near the river Vingeanne, in the region of modern-day Dijon. The terrain was rugged, a mix of rolling hills and dense forests, perfect for Vercingetorix's guerrilla tactics. But it also presented Caesar with an opportunity. If he could lure the Gauls into a pitched battle, his legions would have the advantage of discipline and cohesion. And so, with this in mind, Caesar began to maneuver his forces. The plan was deceptively simple. Caesar would use his cavalry, including allied Gallic horsemen loyal to Rome, to harass Vercingetorix's forces. Meanwhile, the Roman legions would maintain a defensive posture, securing key positions and waiting for the Gauls to make a mistake. Vercingetorix, for his part, was eager to press his advantage. The victory at Gergovia had made him overconfident, and he believed that Caesar was on the defensive. He took the bait. As the Roman cavalry skirmished with the Gauls, Vercingetorix ordered his warriors to pursue, thinking he had caught Caesar off guard. The Gauls, fierce and impulsive, charged down from the hills, eager for battle. But as they neared the river, the true nature of Caesar's strategy became clear. The Roman cavalry, feigning retreat, suddenly regrouped and launched a counterattack, driving the Gauls into disarray. It was at this moment that Caesar unleashed his legions. The sight of the Roman legions advancing in perfect formation, their shields gleaming in the summer sun, must have been a terrifying one for the Gauls. Trained to fight as individual warriors, the Gauls struggled to form a cohesive defence against the disciplined ranks of the Roman infantry. The legions, with their short swords and tightly locked shields, began to cut through the Gallic ranks like a scythe through wheat. Vercingetorix, realizing that he had been outmaneuvered, tried desperately to rally his forces. His warriors, though outmatched by the Roman legions in open combat, fought with the ferocity of men defending their homeland. The battle devolved into brutal close-quarters combat, with neither side willing to give an inch. For hours, the two armies clashed by the river, the air filled with the sounds of steel on steel, war cries and the screams of the wounded. But Caesar had one more trick up his sleeve. As the battle raged on, he ordered a contingent of his cavalry to flank the Gauls from the rear. This manoeuvre, executed with precision, caught Vercingetorix's forces completely off guard. Surrounded on all sides, the Gallic warriors began to break ranks. Panic set in as they realized they were trapped between the Roman infantry and cavalry, with no escape route. Vercingetorix, seeing the tide of battle turning against him, made the difficult decision to retreat. He and his surviving warriors fled back to the relative safety of the hills, leaving the battlefield in Roman hands. The Gauls had fought bravely, but they were no match for the tactical genius of Caesar and the discipline of his legions. The Battle of the Vingeanne, though not as famous as some of Caesar's other engagements, was a critical moment in his campaign to suppress the Gallic rebellion. It marked the beginning of the end for Vercingetorix's uprising. Though he had managed to escape with his life, Vercingetorix's forces were severely weakened. Caesar, on the other hand, emerged from the battle stronger than ever. His legions had proven once again that they were the finest fighting force in the world, capable of overcoming even the fiercest of opponents. In the aftermath of the battle, Caesar wasted no time in consolidating his gains. He ordered the construction of fortifications along the river, ensuring that the Gauls would not be able to mount a counterattack. He also sent word to Rome, reporting his victory and seeking reinforcements for the final push against Vercingetorix. The battle had not only been a military success, but also a psychological one. The Gauls, who had once believed that they could defeat the Romans, now faced the grim reality that their resistance was crumbling. But Caesar's work was far from over. Though the victory at Vingeanne was significant, it was not the decisive blow that would end the Gallic War. Vercingetorix, though bloodied and weakened, had retreated to safer ground. As he regrouped, Caesar prepared for the next phase of the campaign. His next objective was to bring Vercingetorix into a final climactic battle, one that would determine the fate of Gaul. The Roman general knew that the Gauls, despite their losses, were still formidable. Vercingetorix's strategy of guerrilla warfare had proven effective at slowing the Roman advance. The Gauls could strike quickly, retreating into the forests and hills before Caesar's legions could mount a proper counter-offensive. Yet Caesar remained confident. His forces were experienced and disciplined, and he had a keen understanding of the land. He knew that if he could bring Vercingetorix into an open battle, the Gauls' superior numbers would count for little against the well-trained Roman legions. Word of Caesar's victory at Vingeanne spread quickly. In Rome, the news was met with celebration. The Senate, eager to see the Gallic War brought to a successful conclusion, granted Caesar additional resources and reinforcements. This show of support bolstered his efforts, allowing him to consolidate his gains and prepare for the final push against Vercingetorix. Vercingetorix, meanwhile, was not idle. He recognized the precariousness of his position and knew that another defeat could spell the end of his rebellion. He called upon his allies across Gaul, urging them to rally to his side for one final stand. His plan was to draw Caesar into a fortified position, one where the Gauls' knowledge of the terrain could give them an advantage over the Roman war machine. For this, Vercingetorix chose the hilltop fortress of Alesia, a seemingly impregnable stronghold. As Caesar prepared for the assault on Alesia, he reflected on the battles that had brought him to this point. The victory at Vingeanne had been crucial, not only in weakening Vercingetorix's forces, but also in cementing Roman control over the surrounding regions. The battle had shown the Gauls that Caesar was not to be underestimated, even after the defeat at Gergovia. His resilience, tactical brilliance, and the loyalty of his legions had carried him through some of the most challenging moments of the campaign. For Caesar, the conquest of Gaul was more than just a military campaign. It was a chance to secure his legacy. With each battle won, his reputation grew, not just in Rome, but across the known world. The Battle of Vingeanne was another step toward that legacy, another testament to his unmatched skill as a commander. With the stage set for the final confrontation at Alesia, both Caesar and Vercingetorix knew that the fate of Gaul hung in the balance. The rebellion had come so close to success, yet Caesar had managed to keep his forces intact and in pursuit of total victory. The coming siege would be the ultimate test for both leaders. Their armies, their strategies, and their will to win would be pushed to the breaking point. As the legions marched on, ready to meet their final challenge, the memory of the Battle of Vingeanne remained fresh in their minds. They had defeated the Gauls in open battle once again, proving that discipline and strategy could overcome even the fiercest resistance. The future of Gaul and the future of Caesar would soon be decided.